theyeshiva.net.
You see page Tesvav, the last paragraph. We now go to the next stage. V'hinei k'moshe b'matan Torah. Shahaya b'maymed har Sinai hu ilu nifla l'gabe kiyam ha-Torah d'ha'avos. Ad shebis eredus moichin ha-niglim b'shas matan Torah is chilul is talik moichin ha-koidmin. Just as the whole explanation that Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah that happened when the Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai, Ma'amad Har Sinai, after they endured the exile in Egypt and came to Har Sinai. And we explained that that was an Ilui Nifla. It was a whole new paradigm, a whole different state relative to the Torah that existed in the times and in the mind and in the life of even the Aves of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Which is why Hashem tells Moshe that I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov with the name Shin Daled Yud. And we explained that Shin Daled Yud is Shaddai, Amar Lo Elamai Dai. It's the dimension, what we call Koyach HaGvul, the finiteness of the universe, which means it's the name that is expressed through the universe, that which contains the world, that which limits the world. It shouldn't go too up, it shouldn't go too down, as explained before. And then by Matan Torah was the Gilui of what? Shem Havaya, Yudke Vovke, Havaya de La'ela, the Atzmus Ein Sof, to the point that when the Moichin, Haniglim of Matan Torah, when the ideas, the awareness, the connection that Matan Torah brought out, when that started to be triggered and revealed, the old Moichin had to depart and become ultimately eclipsed. And that was the whole explanation of the Brisbane Absarim and the Galus Mitzrayim. And what Hashem tells Moshe, Ata Sira, now that the Asarim Amoris are completely concealed, Pare denies them completely. Now, Aseres Hadibris can begin to emerge. That's all about Matan Torah versus pre-Matan Torah. We now go to the next step. Kain hu al derech zeh. A similar level, you can appreciate Richu Ka'erech, the extraordinary distance, the extraordinary remoteness. Mimasha nigla at al yedei Matan Torah legabi Mashiach Geulah la'asad. Al yedei Mashiach b'mheira b'yameinu amen. The difference between that which is now taka revealed through Matan Torah relative to that which will be revealed in the future through Mashiach speedily in our days. Amen. This is expressed in the pasuk in Yeshaya. Yeshaya Hanavi, Isaiah, who was the prophet of redemption, says in Perik and Aleph, Ki Torah me'iti teitze. Torah will come out from me. So Chazal say, Chidusha shel Torah me'iti teitze. Torah chadasha me'iti teitze. There'll be like a new Torah that comes out from me. It's a famous medrash in Parshas Shmini, where the Chazal say that La'asad Lavid is going to be the great feast of the Levyasan and the Sher Habar. And the Levyasan, the Leviathan, is going to slaughter, it's going to kill the Sher Habar, this huge ox, Bisampirov, with its fins. And the Gemara, the Medrash says, V'loi kach taninon, it's against the Mishnah that you can't shecht b'magel with a sickle, not a smooth knife. And how can this shor habar how can this shor be kosher to eat for tzaddikim? And the Medrash answers this pasuk: Torah me'iti teitze, chidush Torah me'iti teitze. Now you have to understand what that means. Halacha doesn't change. Torah zois le'tei mechlefes. We learned once a Maamar l'kuda Torah Parshas Shmini, if you remember. Levyasan zeh tzarta l'sachik boy. The Havana of this medrash, divrei chachamim v'chidoisam. But what we're learning out from this medrash is that there is a newness, a chidush Torah. In other words, it's not that there was Matan Torah and that just continues all the way till Mashiach. Obviously, Matan Torah was Matan Torah. It won't happen again. But there's something completely new in the Geulah, in the future Geulah, even relative to the great revolutionary paradigm shift of Matan Torah. You'll ask, 1 second. If you take seriously what we said before, what's the Chiddush? Hagam shebeshas Matan Torah nigle gamkin pnimiyus, k'meshakasav ponim beponim. We explained that what was the Chiddush of Matan Torah? That the pnimiyus of the Ein Sof emerged, and it's nitfus, it's grasped in the etzem ha-neshama, in the core of the neshama, in the core of the yechidush ha-benefesh of a Jew. That till then, it was what? It was chachmi yediyah, you could be taifas, the boire based on the nivra. The boire that is projected from Bria. And even if it's very real, like by Avram Avinu, who really grasped the balabayas, lebirizu, and they had a relationship with that balabayas. It was a relationship with the owner of the palace, the architect, the designer, the artist, the musician. The intelligent designer, as they like to call him. The intelligent designer. That relationship. But the pnimius of Ein Sof, that complete intimate relationship with the core of truth, with the core of infinite truth that is beyond infinity and beyond finiteness, that the person is not capable of. Mazel tov. I told him yesterday that there's no knas for not coming today. We're not checking him off today. He's exempt. But just okay. But by Matan Torah, what was the chiddush? Ponim beponim dibur Hashem imachem. Ponim beponim is the full pnimius, face to face, like the mashal he gave. It's not just you see the artist from the piece of art, but you know the artist from within, you know him. And b'meila, you also can appreciate that the art is just one expression. And actually the art may be the smallest expression. Lo zeu ikar elikus masha'ilmas mesavim imenu, as the Balatanya says. So, if that came out, if that's real, if that's what Matan Torah is, if that's what Yiddishkeit is, never competes with science or physics. Where science ends, it begins. So, what more? What you have ponim beponim, you have the pnimius, you have the truth, you have the core. So now you tell me that just like the remoteness of Matan Torah, Lagabi before Matan Torah, is the distance of Mashiach, even Lagabi Matan Torah. So he says, that's true, all true. Aval ein za adayin rak bepnimius haneshama shel b'chinas yichida. Where is the ponim beponim felt? Where is this relationship? Emes, that through Matan Torah Hashem implanted himself and allows the soul, the etzem yechida is considered the core quintessence of the soul. Medrash says that chamisha shemes nikrula. Soul has 5 names, 5 dimensions: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. Yechida is the 5th level, the deepest core. Every day there's 3 we daven 3 times a day. Shabbos, Yom Tov 4 times. Yom Kippur 5 times. Every tefillah corresponds to 1 dimension, and you have ne'ilah, which is yechida shebenefesh. Yechida comes from the word yachid. We have in the Hishainus of Sukkot, the 3rd day. It depends on the nusach. Toyenes ulach yechida liyachdach. Speaks about the Jews. Toyenes, the Jewish soul. Toyenes ulach. It carries your oil, your yoke, so to speak, your presence. Yechida liyachdach. It's one unifying you. Yechida represents the complete oneness. That at the core soul, it's not just there's a recognition that there is a boire from stunning the world, but there's an absolute oneness, as he said, amitis atzmus ein soif nitfes be'etzem ha'yechid of neshamas Yisrael. Nefesh, it's Bereshis Rabbah, Medrash Rabbah Bereshis. Chamisha shemes nikru ulah. The soul has 5 names: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. You want to know if that's what's bothering Congressman Omer? Yeah, well, the Gemara says in Shabbos that Sinai comes from the word Sinai, right? Shemimena yarda Sinai l'umasoilam. That's what the Gemara says in Shabbos, Peiches, I think. That Sinai comes from the word Sinai. When the Torah was given on Har Sinai, animosity also descended. So that it's a separate sugya. So that's an extraordinary idea that, as he says by Matan Torah, nigla lehem atzmus oirein sof bepnimiyus nishmasam, as we learned before. The atzmus of Ein Sof is present, it's revealed in the core of their soul, and as he put it earlier, makirim mitzad etzem hayechidas atzmus oirein sof. Mitzad the yechidas shebenefesh, the deepest quintessence of the Jewish soul, he recognizes, he has a hakara in atzmus Ein Sof. Hakara, not a yediyah. Hakara means it's like we're best friends. We just know each other. We experience each other. Because it's one, there's complete oneness. That's all true. And this shift was a quantum leap to a completely different place. And that's the real core of Emunah and the real core of Yiddishkeit, etc. Aval la'asid lava yizgala etzem ha'yechid begilui beguf. The chiddush of la'asid lava of the Geulah is that this etzem ha'yechid, this oneness that the soul knows and recognizes with a hakara, tviyas ayin, not just a simon. The tviyas ayin we keep on talking about. Atzmus Ein Sof is going to be begilui beguf in the most revealed way, in the very body, in the very physical body, the sensation, the physicality of the person. After Matan Torah, it's in Yechidah Shebenefesh. Yechidah Shebenefesh is the core, but it remains in the core. But there's a whole outer dimension of human life that can be detached from it, that may not be aligned. The Chiddush of La'asid Lavi is that the Hakara and Atzmos comes from the body. From the body, through the body, in the body. That's a whole different Maisa. That's a whole different Matzav. So similar to the revolution of Matan Torah, Lagabi, before Matan Torah, is the complete transformation from Mashiach, even Lagabi Matan Torah. Ponim beponim dibur Hashem imochem, that the etzem ha'yechida of a Jew is makir atzmos Ein Sof. But where are you makir? Where do you have a hakara in Ein Sof? In the etzem ha'neshama, in the deepest layers of the soul. Mitzad Matan Torah. The chiddush of the Geulah is that this etzem ha'yechida, the hakara and atzmos, is a body experience. By the future Matan Torah, the Torah Chadosha meditates. That's the meaning of, it says by Mashiach. The Navi Zechariah says, the famous pasuk, Ani v'roichev al hachamor, right? He's a poor man and he rides on a donkey. A donkey, what's wrong if he comes in a Cadillac or a Toyota or a BMW? Nobody will say hi to him. The Pshat Chamor, the Maral says Chamor comes from the word Chaimer. Chaimer is the material. Chaimer is material. Right? There's Tzura and there's Chaimer, the brute, the physical. Ani v'reichav al hachamor, that the gilui of the Ein Sof by the Geulah is al hachamor. It's on the guf and it's through the guf. He comes on the chamor. The chamor brings Mashiach. The guf itself, the gashmi itself, the physicality itself becomes the perfect conduit of the core of Ein Sof. Mashiach ben David. Ani v'roich v'lachamar. Yeah. Umemela yizgala pnimiyus Ein Sof lamata k'mela mayla mamish b'chitzonius olamas. B'mela, what happens is that the pnimiyus of Ein Sof is revealed. Then lamata, below, as it is lamayla, above, in the mamish, in the most external elements of the world. At shebeyesh hagashmi yoyer v'yizgal l'bchinas yesh amiti. To the point that the yesh hagashmi will become completely synchronized, and you'll see the oneness of the yesh hagashmi with the yesh amiti. The yesh hagashmi is the physical yesh, the physical sense of the substance of the world, which on its own, superficially, is extremely egotistical and self-contained and divorced from any deeper truth. Elamai, you can search and excavate and scrutinize and work on yourself and work on the world and come to appreciate some deeper forms of truth and spirituality. Yesh Amiti is the true yesh, the true being, the true existence. What's the Geulah? The Geulah is that the yesh hagashmi and the yesh amiti are completely one. That the yesh hagashmi is nothing separate from the yesh amiti. That the full truth of the yesh amiti, the ultimate true yesh, which is the core of Ein Sof, is expressed, revealed, and manifested in the very yesh hagashmi. That becomes the definition of yesh, the gashmi definition of yesh, the physical, brute definition of yesh, which till now, at some point, it's detached, it's disaligned. The ego, the yesh hagashmi, is considered the great threat to spirituality. Ayin is glorified. Ayin is the bittul, the nothingness, the real nothingness, meaning the intangibility that the yesh must strive for, that which is beyond. The chiddush of Mashiach is that the yesh hagashmi becomes the greatest, not only testimony of the yesh amiti, it is the yesh amiti. The whole gili of yesh amiti is in the yesh hagashmi. V'lachein amru Razal, that's a whole different maisa. V'lachein amru Razal, that's why Chazal say, Mishachadav beis hamikdash noilad Mashiach. When is Mashiach born? By the Churban beis hamikdash. It's brought in Paiskim, based on this Maamar Chazal, which is from Medrash Rabbi Eisa Rabbi Parsha Aleph, and also in Yerushalmi it says that Mashiach is born by the Churban Beis HaMikdash, Tisha B'Av. That's what we say Nachem. In the afternoon, the Avelis decreases, even though the Churban happened late in the afternoon. But because Tisha B'Av also has this element of latest Mashiach, it's brought in Paiskim and halachas of Tisha B'Av. I told you last time that the Yerushalmi says that there was a Jew plowing his cow on Tisha B'Av in the areas of the Judean desert. I guess there was something to plow over there, wherever it was, but far from Yerushalayim. And an Arab heard his cow his ox give a grunt, meh, and he said, stop plowing because your Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. The Yerushalmi says this, Talmud Yerushalmi. And then a moment later, the cow gave another grunt, and he said, continue plowing because your Redeemer, your Mashiach, was just born. So the way we learn it generally is it's two separate phases. There's the Churban, and then there's the birth of Mashiach after the Churban. But now we understand a different word. The whole pshat is different. Dahainu, machmas shenoilad Mashiach. It's not two separate things. The Churban comes because there's a Geulah of Mashiach. Machmas shenoilad Mashiach. Because there's a birth of Mashiach, therefore, nis'oirer b'makar l'mayla moichen ayose gvoyim kamal. Back to our mashal. There's a birth of a new idea, a completely new reality that even Matan Torah didn't bring into the world. That's what the Medrash Chazal say. Torah chadosha me'iti teitze. The pasuk in Yeshaya. Torah me'iti teitze. It's a new Torah. What does it mean a new Torah? Not a new halacha. Ha-Torah hazah is one of the 13 principles is Ha-Torah hazah is leitehem uchlefes. Torah is not going to be changed. The Torah mitzvahs are immutable. What's the Torah me'iti say? A new idea comes in. What's this idea? That's called the birth of Mashiach. What happens when the new idea comes into the teacher? What happens? We know the old Gilui starts getting concealed. more concealed, more concealed. But it's all in the teacher still. It's not yet in the student. For the student, it spells distance, absence. So he says, Machmas shenailad Mashiach, nis'ayrer b'makir l'mayla meichen ayosek vayam kana. There was a birth of a new Oir. L'mayla, in the source of the world, meaning Kavayachal and Hashem. There was aroused the highest level of meichen. Not just a greater idea, the highest idea. This is the idea of Geulah. Complete oneness. Complete oneness, not just that the etzem, you can have a relationship with the core, but that the material itself, the most external dimension of existence, becomes the conduit of the ultimate truth of all truth beyond existence. Gilui ha'yechid in the guf, the chitzonius ha'olamis, mamish have the same gilui of etzem, the yesh ha'nivra becomes one with the yesh ha'amiti. That idea emerges. V'lachein chorav beis hamikdash. The birth of Mashiach, which comes after the Churban, really is coming before the Churban. It's the trigger, it's the prerequisite, it's the antecedent of the Churban. That's why there was a Churban, v'nistale gili hakadam kanal. The previous paradigms, the previous revelations got lost. There's no Beis HaMikdash, there's nothing left. That's the moment of complete darkness. The moment when the light that was manifest, what's the Beis HaMikdash? The Beis HaMikdash is the light of God manifested in the world. That was just destroyed. So how do you see that? You could look at it and say, that's the end of God in this world. What did Friedrich Nietzsche say? Huh? Yeah? Right, I read something, there was somebody saw on a subway station, some graffiti. God is dead, hyphen Nietzsche. And under it, Nietzsche is dead, hyphen God. Not a bad comeback from God, right? Yeah, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, 6,000, shit alfishnin havam, the 6,000 years. The first 1,000 years is toyu, chaos. Second 1,000 years is Torah. And the next 2,000 years, Yemaisa Mashiach. What says Yemaisa Mashiach? That's called 2,000 years Yemaisa Mashiach. You know when that started? Alpayim Shana Toyu ended at the year 2000. Then starts Torah. When was Avraham Avinu born? Avraham Avinu was born 1948. Not 1948, our 1948. Other things happened 1948. 1948 from the creation of the world. 1948 from the creation of the world. That's the end of Alpayim Toyu. The 2,000 years of Toyu starts Torah. Because Avraham Avinu begins, now we understand. The Bris Bein Apsarim, Matan Torah doesn't begin by Matan Torah. Matan Torah begins by Galus Mitzrayim, and even before by Bris Bein Apsarim. And when did that happen? That happens, mamish, before the year 2000. Because always before, you have a little bit of Tayameh. You know, Erev Shabbos, you start having, it's called Tosfos Shabbos. You bring in Shabbos earlier. Then you have 2,000 years of Torah. So you have from 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So 4,000, Mashiach. 4,000 was just a few decades after the Churban, because the Churban Bar Sheni happened in the year 3,000, Gimel Tov Ches, 3,828. 3828 since creation. So just, or some say 3829 or 3830. In English, in the secular calendar, it's the year 70, 68, 69, or 70 after the Common Era. But in the Jewish calendar, the first Churban was Gimel Shilach. It's always easy to remember. The year when God sent away the people. Gimel Shin Lamed Ches, 3338, 3,338 since creation. Churban Bayesheni happens obviously a few centuries later, because they come back, they build the Beis HaMikdash. It stands for a few hundred years. And then the second one is destroyed in the year 3,828, or 29, or 30, one of those years. 170 years later is the year 4,000, and that's called Yemaisa Mashiach. Right. Yeah, Erev Shabbos, yeah. The Ramban says that every day of Sheshis Mebereshis corresponds to a millennium. So Friday is a 24-hour day. So the way it works is that every 12 hours is 500 years. 24 hours is 1,000 years, right? So Thursday night begins the year 5000. But what we're understanding here is that Yemaisa Mashiach doesn't only mean Yemaisa Mashiach when the Geulah actually came. Because unfortunately the year 4000 the Geulah didn't come. And certainly the day of Tisha B'Av there was no Mashiach. On the contrary, there was the exact opposite. What we're learning here is you have to understand what the Churban is. That when you understand the Pnimius of the Churban, what is it? It is the birth of Mashiach. The birth of the new is what causes the concealment of the old. So there's no presence of God in the world. That's what Churban Beis HaMikdash means. And that's why it becomes a day of mourning. And it remains a day of mourning until Binyan Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. That aspect is obviously not cancelled. That's the nigla of it. That's the revealed dimension of it, or the halachic aspect of Tisha B'Av. Somebody asks you, what's Tisha B'Av? Tisha B'Av is a day of sadness. It's a day of mourning. And that's true on a level of nigla. On a level of nister, what's Tisha B'Av? It's the birth of Mashiach. It is the birth of Mashiach. That's what it is. When the nigla and the nister, when the revealed and the concealed come together, that's called Geulah. So the Churban Beis HaMikdash on one level is the greatest histalkos. It's the greatest darkness. The whole Or is gone. And it didn't happen in one day. The Churban Beis HaMikdash happened in stages. The Sanhedrin already left years earlier. I mean, it was, pretty chaotic over there at the end of Bayis Sheni. But still, there was a remnant. There was some Or, there was some shear going on. There was a karbonas that were being brought. The Bayis Sheni was not an easy era. I once heard from Rabbi Beryl Wine, he was teaching history, so he said, if Jews survived by Sheni, they could survive anything. There was civil war, there was strife, it was not an easy time by Sheni. After everything said and done, there was a shear. The shear was going on. Yeah, there were a lot of hecklers, and there were disturbances, and the lights went off, and the lights went on, and there was no air condition. It was a complicated shear, it was a distracted shear, but it was a shear. The teacher was teaching. Churban Beis HaMikdash, there's complete silence. Quite literally, and of course conceptually. So that complete eclipse of the divine presence in the world, what is it? It's darkness. Like the teacher, who just grew silent, and the student is left without any gilui. Like we said before, the lifeline got interrupted. The tainug that he was experiencing, the pleasure got interrupted. What's really happening on a deeper level? A new light just emerged, a completely new Or. And for that Or to take take root and to develop, the old Or is a disturbance, it's a distraction. The teacher could continue giving the old shear, but that new one is lost. So when that moment of darkness, confusion, and uncertainty enters into your life, on a nigla level, there's a loss, and there are tears that come with that loss. And you have to respect that. You can't deny that unless you're in La La Land, right? On a nister level, the same truth, the same loss is also carrying a different message. And that is something new opened up. A new opportunity, a new possibility. I may not be able to master it now. I probably won't. Because if I would be able to master it, then it's not a new thing. If I would be able to master it, if it could just be a simple transition, then it wouldn't be new. It's completely new, so new that the old had to die. That's the point, exactly. And that accelerates. That confusion accelerates back to the mashal. The deeper the teacher masters the new idea, the more it takes shape, the more it's manifested in the world. It comes from chachma to binah to das. What happens? The more absence, the more detached. The histalkos, be'ilui, achar ilui. Well, in the mashal, at some point, he just grows silent, and you don't have that relationship anymore. It's true when the new idea comes in, it's going to include the old idea as well. It's not. You're really not losing it. That's true. B'chlal Masayim Mana. Within 200, you have 100, which will encompass it as well. It won't. The old shit doesn't have to be deleted.
Basically, destroy our
That's the Geulah, the Geulah of the Ein Sof in the world, right? In a manifest way, is interrupted. That's what the Churban is. Yeah, so the godly particle in the Chaimer, maybe we already found. But the Chiddush here is, even if you don't have microscopic eyes. Yeah. V'lachein charav beis hamikdash b'nistala Geulah kadam kanal shayis oirerus hu siba sayistalkus. He repeats again. The hisoirerus is the siba sayistalkus. It's not the histalkus, it's siba sayisoirerus. The hisoirerus is siba sayistalkus. The reason there was a histalkus is because there was a new hisoirerus. Darkness descended because the new light is struggling to enter. And it needs the space to be able to enter. And therefore, because Mashiach is born, Galus begins. And what's the system of Galus? The revelation of godliness in the world got diminished. The revelation of Torah got diminished, generation after generation. By the Churban itself, you had the Tanoim, you had some of the greatest Tanoim. Then you had the Amirayim, then you had the Geonim, and so it continues and continues. So there wasn't only a Galus on a physical level, that's true. But also on a spiritual level, there were tremendous revelations that existed in the beginning of Galus. Even in Galus, with the Tanoim and the Amirayim, that also got diminished. The Geulah Torah got diminished. Our generations are called Eclipsed the Mashiach. Eclipsed the Mashiach, which means the footsteps, the sole, the bottom of the foot. Because it's Akvayim Mamish, it's compared to the Eclipsed, to the Akvayim, to the bottom of the foot, which in terms of the organism of the body has the least blood circulation and is considered the most distant from the brain. That it's also true. And we ask the question, if Galus is a punishment, it should get easier and easier. But if you understand Galus in a different light, so the more the new light comes in, the more there is a diminishment of the old light. So that means two things are happening simultaneously. On one level, the Galus gets worse and worse and worse, meaning less light, less light, less light. Both spiritual light, the Geulah Torah, and also physicality. There were things that happened later in Galus that didn't happen in the beginning of Galus. Our generation knows this all too well. That's true, even before Ikvasa, yeah. Right. Much closer now. Well, now we can say Ikvasa de Mashiach, right? Ikvasa de Mashiach. Eikev, the word Eikev, this week's Parsha, Eikev. Akiva. Akavia ben Mahalal, yeah? It could be. To look in Kisvei Harizal, it could be. So therefore, two things are happening simultaneously. On one level, the oir is diminished more and more and more. Just like in the marshal, the teacher is becoming more and more distanced. There's more silence. There's more confusion. The student is losing everything. What's really happening, though? What's really happening, though, is an opposite thing is happening. There's a gilui of a new oir, more and more and more. And the two are commensurate with each other. The more the teacher is growing distant and absent, what does it mean? It means that the oir is becoming more revealed. So that's the paradox that's happening. So as it continues and there's more choshech, on another level there's also more oir. We see here a very interesting thing. If you look in Jewish history, when it comes to Torah, for example, yeah, everybody knows that the system of Torah is that it was given at Ma'amad Har Sinai. And obviously a lot of Torah was developed over the generations. It's called Torah Shabbal Peh. We have the Mishnah, we have the Gemara, and we have Sifra and Sifri and Tosefta, Braisa, Medrashim, etc. And then, of course, you have Gaonim, you have Bavli, Yerushalmi, Gaonim, Rishonim, Achroinim, Achroine. And there's always a system. Amirayim don't argue with Tanoim. The Gaonim don't argue with the Amirayim, and certainly not with the Tanoim. The Rishonim won't argue with any of the previous generations. The Achroinim won't argue with the Rishonim. They'll argue among themselves. Ad Hayoim, they'll argue among themselves. But that which was established by the Rishonim, if a Rishon said something, you're not going to argue. In other words, why? There's a recognition that the closer to Ma'amad Har Sinai, like we're learning here, there was a greater revelation of the core of Torah. So the way Rambam or Rashi or Ramban or Rashba, these are the Rishonim or the Ran or the Ritva, understood Torah, there's a certain quantum leap and respect that we have for that. Just like the Amirayim had for the Tanoim had for previous generations, all the way back to Ma'amad Har Sinai. And as it evolves, there's what we call Yeridas Hadoros. Whereas the Gemara says, Achshir Dari Bitmiya, the generations are getting better, Bitmiya. There's a certain descent, a desensitization, and a lower understanding or appreciation. And therefore, even though we want to understand and we try to understand, and there's a lot that we could understand, but there's a certain system that's maintained in all of halachic literature by those who take Torah seriously, I'm talking about, of course, and are completely loyal to the integrity of Torah, both intellectually, academically, and in terms of spiritually, Yir Shamayim. So the more you go back, right? The more you go back, it's considered a higher revelation of Torah. That's when it comes to Torah's Hanigla. When it comes to Torah's Hanigla, in terms of halacha, Gemara, Mishnah, that's the system how it works. When it comes to Torah's Hanister, what's called Pnimiyus HaTorah, Kabbalah, Chassidus, that, you see an interesting trend. And that is, even though by Matan Torah, there's a famous expression that by Matan Torah, the Nigla was Benister and the Nister was Benigla. The whole Nigla Matan Torah was concealed because it was all in the Aseres HaDibros. It had to be developed. But the Nister was Benigla because Hashem emerged. Ponim eponim dibra Hashem imachem. So the Nister was Benigla. The Chaim Sofer once said that somebody who denies Nister Benigla denies Nigla Benister. You hear? Think about it. It's pretty intense. With Nister, you see the opposite. In the beginning of Jewish history, by Matan Torah was all Benigla. In the beginning of Jewish history, the Pnimius of Torah was revealed to a certain degree. I mean, there was Nevuah by Yisrishon, but the system of it, yeah. So later you have the Svarim, you have Sefer Yitzir, you have Sefer Aboyer, you have Sefer Hazoy, the Zohar. As the generations progress, you have more Gilui, and then you have the Arizal. The Arizal lived a few hundred years ago, very, very far from Matan Torah, much later than the Tanoim, much later than the Meirayim, much later than the Goinim, later than the Rishonim. It was already the era of the Achroinim. The Arizal lived in the era of the Beis Yosef, the author of the Shulchan Aruch and Tzfas. And the Arizal is considered halachic kedivri Arizal. The Arizal is considered the Poisek Acher when it comes to Kabbalah, Lagabi, all those before him. How does that change? In Nigla, it's the exact opposite. The Arizal is considered the greatest authority on Kabbalah, even Lagabi, all the generations before him. Suddenly there's an opposite trend. It's like the later you are, the better you are. And then after the Arizal, you had more revelation of Kabbalah, then came the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, much later, the Baal Shem Tov was born in 1698, which is 150 years after the Arizal, and revealed the teachings of Chassidus. And then his students. But now you understand, because you're talking about two sides of Judaism and they operate in completely opposite ways. Let's go back to our mashal. When you speak about the dimension of darkness, the further you go, the further progression, the more concealment, the less gilui. In the beginning, you have much more gilui. Even in Galus, you have the Tanoim. But as the Galus continues, more absence, less light, less clarity, more confusion. The way the Amirayim learned Gemara, the way Rav and Shmuel, Abaya and Rava, Reb Nachman and Reb Huna, Rav Ashi and Ravina, and certainly the Tanoim, Reb Akiva, Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon, all these, the way they understood Torah, yeah. So we have a little glimmer of it. Once in a while, you can understand a little more. It gets more and more diminished. Why? Because the old shear, becomes less intense. The teacher, so to speak, is less present, and the oir is diminished. So that's why in Torah Sanigla, you go back in order to find more truth. But 1 second, why is there a greater darkness as every generation continues? Why? Because Mashiach was born. And that light is becoming more and more revealed. Torah Hanister, Pnimiyus HaTorah, Rashi says in Shashidim, that's the Torah of Mashiach. Rashi says, Yishakenim in Neshikas Piyu, is Mashiach is going to reveal, that's the Lashon of Rashi in Shashidim, Soy Ta'ameha u'Mister Tzvunaiseha, the ultimate secrets of Torah. That really belongs to La'asad Lavai. So the closer you get to Mashiach, the more of that oil comes out. And it's Haba Hatalia. The less of the old oil, it's because there's more of the new oil. So that's why the generations progress in terms of Pnimiyus HaTorah. Fakir, the Pnimiyus HaTorah is getting more revealed, in deeper levels, higher levels, and becoming more manifested in the world. The exact opposite trend. And it's not a contradiction. It's really Haba Hatalia. Just like in Tisha B'Av. The Nigla of Tisha B'Av is one dimension. The Pnimiyus of Tisha B'Av is another dimension. And they complement each other. So on the level of Nigla, the more the generations progress, it's Yeridas Hadoros. Lower, and then there's complete silence. There's no complete detachment. The student is completely detached. On the level of Pnimiyus, it's the exact opposite. There's Aliyas Hadoros. The Doros are going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Much higher. Not only higher, infinitely higher. That's why there's Yeridas Hadoros. The Yerida is because the Aliyah. Because there was a whole new oir of Mashiach that was revealed. That creates the Yerida, the descent, the histalkos, the interruption. Opening the student, giving the student the ability and the teacher the ability for a completely new light. That light of the pnimiyus of the olam is becoming more ripe and more ripe and more ripe and more fermented until the ultimate gili of Mashiach. When the Yesh HaNivra and the Yesh HaMiti become one. When the Yechida is not only the Ein Sof is nitfus in Yechida, but it's nitfus in the guf, in the very physical mechanism. In other words, this complete alignment between the highest and the lowest, between the greatest physical, brute material, and the ultimate truth of Ein Sof.
The pshat is that now physical really blocks Anashama.
Yeah.
If the physical becomes
Yeah. 100%. Now the physical eclipses the spiritual. You have to work and prove and argue. And the guf is seeing, if you look in all the, if you look in all of, you look in a lot of Sfarim, the guf is like the enemy of Avodas Hashem. The guf is like the problem. You want to sleep and you want to eat and you want to drink and you have this taiva, that taiva, that taiva. In the truth of reality, it's not that way. Ani v'reicha v'lachamor. The gili of Mashiach is going to be through the chaimer, through the chamor. V'lechein ksiv sukas David hanefeles tader. That's why the expression in Amos, there's a pasuk, sukas David hanefeles. We say it in sukas harachmon yokim lanu, as sukas David hanefeles. But the source is the Navi Amos, chapter 9. What's sukas David hanefeles? Nefeles in the present. It falls, it continues to fall. Kamaimer Azal, the Gemara says at the end of Saita, Shemayom Shecharav Beis HaMikdash, Ein L'chayom She'en Kilelasim Meruba Mechaveira. From the day of Churban Beis Hamikdash, there's no day that the klala, chas v'shalom, the negativity, the toxicity doesn't get worse than the previous day. It's all the same theme. Because the histalkos, the ascent of the old light goes higher and the ascent goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And therefore, every day that it continues, there's a deeper hester, a deeper concealment because a new light is coming in. And therefore, at the end of Galus, who tikboides klippus apikursus, you have the most powerful emergence of the klippa, of the shell, of the husk of what's called apikursus. Apikursus means the absolute denial and disassociation from the truth of reality. Shehu inyan milchemes Gog Magog. Spiritually, that's the concept of the milchem of Gog Magog. The milchemes Gog Magog that we speak about at the end of days, this is, he says, the war of apikursus against truth. Ki yadua, as it's known, be'inyan tar haschira. Tar haschira is the Navi Yeshaya speaks about the fact. It's quite a prophecy. The Navi Yeshaya speaks about the fact that V'hoya b'yomahu, on that day, Hashem is going to take a tara schira. Tara is a shaver, a razor. Schira is a huge one, a huge razor. And he's going to shave the king of Assyria, the king of Ashur. The Navi says he's going to shave his beard, he's going to shave his head, he's going to shave even the hair on his legs. That's what the Navi Yeshaya says. Tara schira. So the Balatanya has a whole Maamar, Tov Kuf Ayin Aleph. The concept of Tara Schiri is that Sancheiriv, the king of Assyria, in a way, he denies, it says in the Psukim, he denied everything. He was Makrish, he completely denied the Metzias of Elokus. That's called Klippas Apikursus. That's what's explained in the Maamar about Tara Schiri. The whole explanation why he has to shave his hair, what it means, it's a euphemism. So Makrishim Metzias Elokus Legamri. They completely deny any Metzias of Elokus, any Metzias outside of the self, of the ego, of the physical is denied. Hagam sheheir me'ein gilui de la'asid al yedei divrei Elokim Chaim. Even though divrei Elokim Chaim is chassidus, called divrei Elokim Chaim. So he says, even though the Baal Shem Tov brought into the world something that's like the Geulah of Mashiach. It's something of the Torah that we spoke. The Torah that's Me'ain, the Geulah of La'asid. Through Chassidus, through Dach. Kanal Bahagal, Pasuk Me'az Bas L'dav B'Shmecha Dav Keira Lamazah. It's like Moshe says, when I came to Paray, it got worse. So L'cha'ira, once you have the Geulah of Dach, of Divrei Elokim Chaim, the Geulah of Pnimiyus HaTorah, the Geulah of Ein Sof, the Geulah of already the Torah of Mashiach, where the Yesh HaNivra and the Yesh HaMiti are becoming one, where there's no separation. So, this is already symptoms of Geulah. And you see that in those generations, after the Baal Shem Tov came the worst layers, levels of apikursus, of a complete denial of God, the greatest distance. So the same question that Moshe had, we ask in this Galus also. Al zen nemar, on this the Navi answers, Kimeit says, Chemeretz Mitzrayim Arenu Nifloyos. The Navi in Micah says, that I will show you wonders in the future, like I showed you by Yetzias Mitzrayim, that if you want to understand the Geulah, you have to understand Yetzias Mitzrayim. Da'ainu, K'shiyagi, Hester Elikuz Kazeh, K'moy Koydem Yetzias Mitzrayim. Begashmius Uberuchnis, Betoykef El Malchus Ve'el Derech Eretz Ubehester Elikuz. Ache yuchlu loima bechutzpa. Afilu al metzias gili elikus an niglai de teres abal shem tev talmidov. Shem dvar sheker chas v'shalom. Kamesha kasav al yishu b'divrei sheker. Zeu simen sha ur chadash de la'asid kvar nigla l'mayla. When you have a concealment on elikus, just like before Yetzias Mitzrayim, Moshe already came and he said there's going to be Geulah. And he already brought that in. He showed the different symptoms of Geulah, pocket pakadati. And he came to Paray, and what happens? Now it gets much worse, physically and spiritually. Paray calls it for the first time a lie. It's all a lie, a sheker. So he says, Kimeit says the exact same pattern. Arenu Nifloyos happens before Mashiach. When you see such a concealment and godliness like before Yetzias Mitzrayim, on a physical level and on a spiritual level. There's a tremendous yoke of Malchus and Derech Eretz, which basically represents the stress. Malchus is living in a regime that was basically a tyrannical regime, a czar who was a tyrant. All derech eretz is the stress of work, the stress of life, the pressures that people live in. And Hester Elikus, that the divine core is completely eclipsed, to the point that the Baal Shem Tov and his students revealed Torah, which was a Gilui Elikus, a revelation of godliness that came into the world. And nonetheless, Jews and non-Jews could look at it and say, it's sheker, it's a lie. Like Parshas said, Al Yishu b'divrei sheker. So it's very demoralizing. He says, no, it means that the new light got revealed. The Or Chadash got revealed. Like by Moshe. Now the Geulah can happen. Atosira, now it can happen. The new light got revealed. V'lachein estale Gili akadam legamri. And that's why the old Gili didn't depart a little bit. It departed completely. When the Asara Maamaris are completely concealed, this means the Asara Sadibris already have taken root. Now the Geulah can happen. They can go to Matan Torah. When this happens, when the new light already emerged in a very powerful way, what does it translate in? The concealment of the old light completely. Ukeshem sha'az nemar atasir davka k'moikin la'asid lavei arenu nifloyus. The stimme, the chol setime, lemata b'riyah chushes. Just like then, he says atasir, now you're going to see, la'asid lavei, he says arenu nifloyus. I'm going to show you the wonders, that the stimme, the chol stimme, and that which is concealed beyond all concealments, will reveal itself here below in a way that you could physically see it. On that day, the pasuk in Yeshaya says that will what are we going to say? As the Gemara says at the end of Tainus, that you could point with your finger and say zeh. How could you say zeh? Zeh you could say on a cup. Zeh you could say on a table. Something that's as physical, as tangible, that my external five senses grasp it. I say zeh. Atasira. The Gili Elikus of La'asad Lavei. The Chiddush is it's B'ri'iyah Chushes V'nigla K'vayid Hashem V'ro Chol Basa Yachtav. It's Ri'iyah, just like you relate to the tangible, to the physical. That's how you're going to relate to the truth of the Ein Sof. Now, ultimately, all spirituality is counterintuitive. You have to come to a Shia, you have to talk about it. Physical is intuitive. You don't have to tell if a person is growing up and there's a natural biological development, at some point a child knows this exists. Because the five senses, the stimuli, comes back and the brain says this exists, it really exists. Same is true with everything. When it comes to higher things, you have to talk, you have to explain. It's not re'iyah chushes, even somebody who's sensitive and gets it, but it's not zeh. It's not zeh. It's not like the body. The body, that's real. That's intuitive. That's just like this. You don't have to explain. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to meditate before you sit down to eat and say, really, I'm not interested in this steak. And really, the vegetables are horrible. And really, this food, why should I even eat? But because I want to live. So if I'm going to develop an appetite, you don't have to do that. What's the lashon in the niggin? Essen, esst sich, trinken, trinkt sich, schlafen, schlaft sich. It's ganz good. You don't have to go, sei sich misbeinen. Comes to Elikus, even a sensitive person, is beinenus and contemplation. So it's a different type of emes. It's an emes that's not intuitive. It's not the realness of the world. It's not the realness. Hine lekenu zeh. That's the chiddush of La'asad Lavei, the atasira, the arenu nifloyus. That's a completely new light. And the darkness of the previous light is only the psura. It carries within itself the psura, the news of that new oir that emerges into the world.
The Holocaust for 1948.
I don't know the reason. I don't know if anybody knows the reason. That was such a titanic tragedy. The Holocaust is such a titanic tragedy that I don't know that any explanation can really do it justice.
How long did it?
And I ask you a question. You say Israel. And was it worth it? Not to underestimate the gift of Israel, but does it really justify that? The Holocaust remains such a black hole of darkness. You know, this type of darkness we don't always understand. We don't always understand what it means. The idea is that the student just, he holds on tight. He holds on. He may not understand, but he holds on. You hold on. When there's turbulence, you got to hold on. Right? The plane is turbulent or the boat is turbulent, you hold on. You may not know how it's going to work out, but you hold on. You have to hold on to something that's unshakable. Amazing. That the Yesh HaNivra is going to be one with that Subshat, you say. That the Guf itself, the Geulah of the Etzem and the Guf. That's why we see that the closer we get to Geulah, there's such a new revelations about the Guf. The body used to be, at best, some type of vehicle you got to take care of. Today, what is it called? The body holds the score, right? Today we know that everything is the body. Everything is in the body. So much healing is through the body, in the body. So at surface, you could say, what does that have to do with Yiddishkeit? But the truth is, that's the whole Chiddush of Mashiach. That God is real and Ruchnius, that's not Mashiach. That's the truth of the world. The whole Chiddush of Geulah is, the Guf is going to reveal everything. It's all going to be in the Guf and through the Guf. All truth is going to come out through and in the body. And that's a complete paradigm shift. It's a quantum leap.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.